Winn-Dixie, Because of Winn-Dixie by Katie Camillo. Hello, my name is Jason John, but you can call me JC. And today I'm going to read you a book called Because of Winn-Dixie by Katie Camillo. I will shortly tell you about the Katie Camillo. Katie Camillo is a writer, and she wrote my favorite book, Mercy Watson. I really respect her because I like pigs, and I also like Mercy Watson's story. So I really like the author, Katie Camillo. And I will now read you a book, Dixie, chapter 16 to chapter 23. Okay, now I'll read you. Chapter 16. Little Miss W. Block was just a boy when the fighting on Fort Sumter occurred. Miss Franny Block said as she started on her story. For Sumter, I said, it was the firing on Fort Sumter that started the war, said Amanda. Okay, I said. I shrugged. Well, Little Miss was 14 years old. He was strong and big, but he was still just a boy. His daddy, Artley W. Block, has already enlisted. And Little Miss told his mama that he could not stand by and let the South get beat. And so he went to fight too. Miss Franny looked around the library and then she whispered, Men and boys always want to fight. They are always looking for a reason to go to war. It is the saddest thing. They have this adding notion that war is fun, and no history lessons will convince them differently. Anyway, Little Miss went off and enlisted. He lied about his age. Yes, ma'am. Like I said, he was a big boy, and the army took him, and Little Miss went off to war. Just like that, left behind his mother and 3 sisters. He went off to be a hero, but he soon found out the truth. Miss Franny closed her eyes and shook her head. What truth? I asked her. Why, that war is hell, Miss Franny said with her eyes still closed. Pure hell. But hell is a cuss word, said Amanda. I stole a look at her. Her face was pinched up even more than usual. War, said Miss Franny with her eyes still closed. Should be a cuss word too. She shook her head and opened her eyes. She pointed at me and then she pointed at Amanda. You neither of you can imagine. No, ma'am, Amanda and me said exactly at the same time. We looked real quick at each other and then back at Miss Franny. You cannot imagine. Little Miss was hungry all the time, and he was covered with all manner of vermin, fleas and lice. In the winter, he was so cold he thought for sure he will freeze to death. And in the summer, why, there's nothing worse than war in the summertime. It stinks so. And the only thing that made Little Miss forget that he was hungry and itchy and hot or cold was that he was getting shot at. And he got shot at quite a bite. And he was nothing more than a child. Did he get killed? I asked. Miss Franny, good grief, said Amanda. She rolled out her eyes. Now, pal, Miss Franny said, I wouldn't be standing in this room telling the story if he was killed. I wouldn't resist. No, ma'am, he had to lie, but he was a changed man. Yes, ma'am, a changed man. We walked back home and the war was over. He walked from Virginia all the way back to Georgia. He didn't have a horse. Nobody had a horse except for a Yankee's. He walked, and when he got home, there was no home there. Where was it? I asked her. I didn't care if Amanda thought I was stupid. I want to know. Why, Miss Wren shouted so loud that Winn-Dixie and Amanda Wilkinson and me all jumped. The Yankees burned it. Yes, ma'am, burned it to the ground. What about his sisters? said Amanda asked. She moved around the desk and came and sat on the floor. She looked up at Miss Rennie. What happened to them? Dead of typhoid fever. Oh no, Amanda said in real soft voice. And his mama? I whispered. Dead too. And his father? Amanda asked. What happened to him? He died on the battlefield. Little Miss was an orphan? I asked. Yes, ma'am, said Miss Franny Block. Little Miss was an orphan. That is a sad story, I told Miss Franny. It sure is, said Amanda. I was amazed that she was agreeing with me about something. I am not done yet, Miss Franny said. Winn-Dixie started to snore, and I nudged him with my foot to try to make him quiet. I wanted to hear the rest of the story. It was important to me to hear how Little Miss survived after losing everything he loved. Chapter 17. Well, Little Miss came home from the war, said Miss Franny as she went on with her story, and found himself alone, and he sat down on what used to be the front step of his house. And he cried and cried. He cried just like a baby. He missed his mama, and he missed his daddy, and he missed his sisters, and he missed the boy he used to be. When he finally finished crying, he had the strangest sensation. He felt like he wanted something sweet. He wanted a piece of candy. He hadn't had a piece of candy in years. And it was right that Dad made the decision. Yes, ma'am. Little Miss W. Block figured the world was a sorry affair and that it had enough ugly things in it. And what he was going to do was concentrate on putting something sweet in it. He got up and started walking. He walked all the way to Florida. And the whole time he was walking, he was planning. Planning what? I asked. Why, planning the candy factory. Did he build it? I asked. Of course he did. It's still standing out in the Fairville Road. That old building, said Amanda. That big spooky one? It is not spooky, said Miss Franny. It was the birthplace of the family fortune. It was there that my great-grandfather manufactured the Little Miss Lunch, the candy that was famous the world over. I've never heard of it, said Amanda. Me neither. I said, well, said Miss Rennie, they aren't made anymore. The world, it seems, lost its appetite for Little Miss lunches. But I still happen to have a few. She opened the top drawer of her desk. It was full of candy, too. Miss Rennie Block's whole desk was full of candy. Would you care for a Little Miss lunch? She asked Amanda and me. Yes, please, said Amanda. Sure, I said. Can Winn-Dixie have one too? I have never known a dog that cared for hard candy, said Miss Rennie. But he's welcome to try one. Miss Rennie gave Amanda one Little Miss lunch and me too. I unwrapped the one and held it out to Winn-Dixie. He sat up and sniffed it and wagged his tail and took the candy from between my fingers real gentle. He tried to chew on it. And when that didn't work, he just swallowed the whole thing into one big gulp. Then he wagged his tail at me and lay back down. I had my Little Miss lunch slow. It tasted good. It tasted like root beer and strawberry and something else I didn't have a name for. Something that made me feel kind of sad. I looked over at Amanda. She was sucking her candy and thinking hard. Do you like it? Miss Rennie asked me. Yes, ma'am, I told her. What about you, Amanda? Do you like the Little Miss lunch? Yes, ma'am. she said, but it makes me think of things I feel sad about. I wonder what in the world Amanda Wilkinson had to feel sad about. She was new to town. She had a mama and a daddy. I had seen her with them in church. There's a secret ingredient in there, Miss Franny said. I know it, I told her. I can taste it. What is it? Sorrow, Miss Franny said. Not everybody can taste it. Children especially seem to have a hard time knowing it's there. I tasted. I said, me too, said Amanda. Well then, Miss Franny said, you probably both had your share of sadness. I had to move away from Watley and leave all my friends, I said. That is one sadness I have had, and Donald and Steve Drewberry are always picking on me. That's another sadness. And the biggest one, my biggest sadness, is that my mama left me when I was still small, and I can hardly remember her. I kept hoping I'd get to meet her and tell her some stories. It makes me miss Carson, said Amanda. She sounded like she was going to cry. I have to go, and she got up and almost ran out of Herman W. Block Memorial Library. Who's Carson? I asked Miss Franny. She shook her head. Sorrow, she said. It is a sorrow-filled world. But how do you put that in a piece of candy? I asked her. How do you get that taste in there? That's a secret. That's why Little Miss made a fortune. He manufactured a piece of candy that tasted sweet and sad at the same time. Can I have a piece to take to my friend Gloria Dump, and another one to take to Otis down at Garter Pat's, and one for the preacher, and one for Sweetie Pie too? You may have as many as you want, said Miss Franny. So I stuffed my pockets full of Little Miss lunches, and I thanked Miss Franny for her story, and I checked out David Copperfield, which was a very big book. And I told Winn-Dixie to get up, and the two of us left and went over to Gloria Dump's. I rode right past the Dewberry's house. Donald and Steve were playing football in the front yard, and I was just getting around ready to stick my tongue out at them, but I thought about what Miss Franny said, about war being hell. And I thought about what Gloria Dump said, about not judging them too hard. And so I just waved instead. The students stared at me, but when I almost all the way past, I saw Donald put his hand up in the air and wave back. Hey! He hollered, hey, you pal! I waved harder, and I thought about Amanda Wilkinson and how it was neat that she liked the good story the same as I did, and I wondered again, who was Carson? When we got to Gloria Dump's, I told her that I had two surprises for her and asked which one did she want first, the small one or the big one. The small one, said Gloria Dump. I handed her the Little Miss lunch, and she moved it around in her hands, filling it. Candy? She said. Yes, ma'am, I told her. It's called a Little Miss lunch. Oh, Lord, yes, I remember these candies. My daddy used to eat them. She unwrapped the Little Miss lunch and put it in her mouth and nodded her head. Do you like it? I asked her. Mm-hmm. She nodded her head slowly. It tastes sweet, but it tastes like people leaving. You mean sad? Does it taste like sorrow to you? That's right, she said. It tastes sorrowful but sweet. Now, what's surprise number 2? A book. I said, a book? Uh-huh. I said, it's called David Copperfield. I'm going to read it out loud to you, just like Miss Franny Block's great-grandfather read it to her great-grandfather, and she read it to her father. All right, then, said Gloria Dump. She nodded. We are going to be part of a tradition. It's going to take us a long time to read this book, I told her. There are 624 pages. Whee, said Gloria. She leaned back in her chair and crossed her hands out on her stomach. We best get started. Then. And so I read the first chapter of David Copperfield out loud to Gloria Dump. I read it loud enough to keep her